Yeah, the documentary, I think, is going to serve as a lot of the answers of what we observed. I'm happy to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still formulating an official, the documentary is going to be this statement on what I think the shape of the world is, what I think we learned. I can talk about those things, but I'd really rather, or at least prefer to save some of that stuff. So I don't want to say like, I think the earth is flat or I think the earth is round predominantly in any sense, but I'll tell you what we learned and what I think that, we've discovered from some of that. Now, I think there were some interesting points about the process that revealed some things for me. The way the communities responded online, the way the communities responded to some of the people that organized and went on the trip. But we could get into all that. Let's go with your questions and take it from there.
Okay. What equipment did you use to capture the footage of the midnight sun in Antarctica?
Well, my equipment was based, a lot of it was based on what I thought I'd be able to bring with me and not have battery issues, run out of power. So I used the Canon 1DX Mark III as like my main camera. I had some zoom lenses, some prime lenses. My secondary camera was a 5D Mark IV. So for all my interviews, I used those two cameras. When documenting the 24-hour sun, for my time-lapse and my hyperlapse, I used the Osmo by DJI, the Osmo Action 4 camera. I also used a Canon G7X, the Mark II. I've been using that as my vlogging camera. And I interviewed everyone with this approach that they were going to be the subjects and that I was going to be the filmmaker and the documentarian, but I wanted to include myself. So there wasn't a way I thought relevant to really accentuate everyone's interviews and then also have an interview with myself. So I used the G7X for a lot of that. I was using the DJI Mic Mini system with a Sound Devices Mix Pre 6. And the Mix Pre 6 was my sound recorder. I had a Sennheiser 416 boom microphone that I was getting all the ambient and capturing conversations and things naturally for nat sound. And I had a DJI Mic 2, which I used for a wireless recording system that I could put on people and not have to monitor the way I was monitoring the recorder. So I could have a lot of conversations going. It was all happening pretty quickly. And so as a result, I wanted to be able to have good coverage as the only person, Dogma 95 style, just me with a camera, that sort of thing.
Okay. Did anything get messed up from the cold or from the sun?
No, nothing got messed up. That we anticipated that it would. It was negative 14 Celsius, which is like 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Didn't have a big issue with batteries. Didn't have a big issue. They seemed to run a little faster. But overall, I was pretty standard with the switching of batteries and how quick I could use them. So there weren't too many issues. Okay. I thought everything held up well.
Since this was about proving something scientifically, how did you ensure that the video was not misconstrued or manipulated by editing software?
Well, the editing software I'm using is just your basic nonlinear, digital editing platform. I've got an editor working on it, Sam, right now. Hank's going to be doing some as well. We did experiments, and I say we because I had some simple things, my compass, an altimeter for how high we are, that sort of thing. But as I approached this very short notice, I realized I wanted to make this documentary less about the observations and more about the human interest journey of 9 strangers coming together from all over the world, going to one of the harshest climates on the planet, being Antarctica, and putting their contrasting ideas of a flat Earth versus a round Earth into the crucible with intense scrutiny between each other and really seeing where things landed, what came out on top, what came out on bottom.
Okay. Did you, did you use time lapse? Oh, hold on a second. Another question I wanted to ask you first. Okay, sorry. Can you, how'd you set up the camera to capture the continuous sunlight?
Well, for mine, which I haven't released yet, I had a tripod with a DJI Osmo. I had to turn it about 90 degrees every couple of hours because it has a tracking feature, so I can track the sun. The shots that you saw done by Dave McKeegan and the 24-hour video seen by Will Duffy, those were using a 360 X4 camera system. So Will Duffy recorded 25 hours plus continuous nonstop video and audio. The time lapse by Dave McKeegan was recorded using the same camera, but his was on intervals as a time lapse. That camera basically just records 360 degrees at all times. And you crop out and edit later where you want to focus the video. So for them, it was tracking the sun.
Okay, so you mentioned it was kind of this is a place that's far away, and also it's kind of off limits. Antarctica, people are generally not allowed to go there without special approval, and also of a great expense. I think you mentioned it costs like $30,000 or $40,000. And you got to go through you got to go there with special guides that will keep you alive and everything. So, anything you want to add to that process?
Yeah, so that was the impression I had as well, is that Antarctica and the Antarctic Treaty really prohibit for a lot of reasons. But I'm starting to find that's less accurate. I mean, the cruise ships take people to the outer, rim where the water meets the ice and land meets the water and that sort of stuff. But prior to our trip, the couple days before we went was the annual Antarctic Ice Marathon. And this is the marathon run. I think it's a 10K. People from all over can come. All you do is have to pay admission. You're taken by ALE, which stands for Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions. They're a company based out of Salt Lake City and Punta Arenas, Chile. They have everything you need to go. They maintain the Antarctic Treaty requirements. Their guides are with you to ensure that those requirements are met. There's a lot of fear that, leaving things behind is an issue, whereas ALE, they've got over 20 years, maybe 30 years of doing this experience and expedition, building the blue ice runway, logistically bringing the planes and building the camp. So they really handled a lot of that. I think really it comes down to individuals wanting to go on their own accord, where it would be more difficult. You'd have to have a diplomatic sponsorship and that sort of thing if one was going to go. So I'm not sure really that we're that prohibited as I once thought. I think that's a misnomer. And I think people would find they could go. There's just a lot of regulations and rules that need to be met. Like I said, packing in and out your waste, that's everything from your food, your trash, your waste. So that's a little bit harder. It's not like someone can go. Now, I know when you go on the, if you take the Herculean route and you're traveling to the South Pole on an expedition, a solo journey, there's rules up until the 90th parallel where you're not required to take your direct waste bowel movements out. But I don't have all the facts on that. I just know that there's some wiggle room.
Okay, and what did you do with your bowel movements exactly?
We didn't do anything with ours. We had toilets set up everywhere we went. There's a hard waste and a liquid waste. They're separate, depending on what you had to do. Your showers, same sort of thing. So ALE, again, they handle that.
So that was included.
Part of the benefit of going with a logistics company.
Okay, so for your $40,000, they take care of your poop for you. Okay, that sounds like a good deal.
Pretty much.
That's luxury. All right. Can you tell me, so you went there during the winter for our winter, but it was summer there, right? Was it nice and beautiful, balmy with palm trees, or was it a mile thick of ice and no rocks, land, or soil or trees?
Well, there's no life, so there's no trees, there's no bugs. I don't know about bacterial level. There's a couple of birds they see seasonally a few times a year. I don't know what the birds are. I asked the guide I was with didn't know. It wasn't the albatross because I asked. The penguins and that sea life is really quite far from us. We were 4 hours from Punta Arenas, which is about a 1,600 mile flight. Southeast of Chile, Punta Arenas, Chile. So it was like this. Different times a day, where the sun was in the sky, because it circles us, it felt different. So when the sun was towards the South Pole, it tended to be a little colder. Like my hands got really cold. I couldn't have them without gloves. Where on the contrast, the opposite direction, and when we took photos like shirtless as we did right when we arrived, look, there's no wind. It's the summer. The solstice is the 21st. We were there the 14th, 15th, 16th, maybe 17th. We left early. We were supposed to stay till the 18th. So no, it's not tropical. There's snow, but what I learned is in Antarctica, it doesn't really snow much. There's not a lot of humidity. And as a result, when the snow really gets moved around, it's a result of wind. This is ancient snow, they say. So we're on a glacier. It goes below the sea level. It's about 500 meters above sea level, but it goes about 1.5 miles down, 2.5 miles at the pole. And, it just has a very, I don't know, stagnant feel. Like when the wind's not blowing, you're not cold. You've got a lot of layers on for most of the day. All the facilities where we could go inside are heated. And so, we put on these giant polar jackets about a half an hour before landing. The pilot turns the AC on or the heater off so that we start to acclimate inside the plane before landing, and you get off. It's a bit of a shock. There's a loud engine from the 757 that we flew in on, but overall, it wasn't too bad.
So you said it got down to minus 14. How warm did it get?
I wasn't watching a thermometer the whole time. That's just a reading I saw on the board at the main ALE camp. I'd imagine it probably got a little colder. I'd imagine it was probably a little warmer. They said it fluctuated. At the coldest at the poles, it's like negative 30 Celsius. Don't quote me on this. A lot of people try to, and I don't really have accurate information. I know that Antarctica, it does seem like a large landmass, and so you have to be pretty specific when looking at where we were, which was Union Glacier, the Blue Ice Runway, and the halfway point on the 10K loop.
So you said you took your shirts off. Was it warm or was it freezing cold when you took your shirts off?
It wasn't bad. I mean, it's colder nights in California. It's cold. I think the adrenaline was running for all of us. We were excited to be there. And so I just had this opportunity to take off my jacket, and I had on my flannel that I'm wearing now. And I had a thermal shirt under that. And I was like stuck in this waiting period of orientation and drone check and getting checked into our tents and getting, meals that I was like, hey, passing my camera. I'm going to sit right here and moved a chair by this ice wall. Right outside the cafeteria, there's like a little airstrip with these small snowcat or snow otters, rather. They're similar to like a Cessna. I think they're a little bit bigger. Dual prop planes. And I'm like, hey, this is a cool adventure. This is a good start. We've got Wi-Fi from Starlink. Let's get a picture right now so I can post this online. And I think that inspired Will Duffy, our leader, and some others like, hey, I want to take my shirt off. That's pretty funny. So others did.
All right. Did you use time-lapse or other special filming techniques to illustrate the movement of the sun?
Yeah, I used time-lapse. I used hyperlapse. I used the drone. I was able to get a mile high. We were unlocked by DJI with our perimeters, which was pretty cool in the Union Glacier zone. So a pretty beautiful shot that high. It's like 5,000 feet, 5,000 meters. Pretty incredible. But time-lapse a little bit. I did some time lapses in Punta Arenas, Chile, of the sunrise, the sunsets. I did a couple of time lapses there in halfway point and back at the camp, just to show the sun's movement for transitional shots between scenes, documenting it. But I was more of an ENG camera, more of a run and gun, sort of like what you'd get behind the scenes on anything, the inner workings of the journey.
How did you address potential flat Earth arguments about atmospheric phenomenon or lens effect in your video documentation?
Well, I haven't had to address too many of them. People have criticized the 24-hour video that Dave McKeegan shot. All I can say is that, we put a second camera on those cameras, so you can see there was no tomfoolery with that process. It was all pretty legitimate. It is a weird 180-degree bubble lens, and I know people had some issues there, and I'll have to wait and see what we have further. We had some solar filters that we were able to put on Dave McGeegan's 500 millimeter lens, my 200 millimeter lens. It allowed me to zoom in pretty close. He got much better of a shot. We could see sunspots and really get the focus, but not too many issues with that. People criticizing. I mean, people are going to criticize, but I wasn't there to argue against flat earthers, and I wasn't there to argue against round earthers. I was really just trying to document the others having the experience and doing their experiments and the journey, as it were.
What was the reaction of the flat earth believers when they saw the raw footage of the midnight sun, and how was that reaction captured on video?
You know, we filmed pretty much everything during that time, and Will Duffy went live at about midnight. So 9, 10, we're about 4 hours into it, he went live. You know, it's a humbling process. I think we all expected it. You can see that it's going to exist before you go. I know there were some issues with some of the pre-recorded time lapses that existed. People had issues with like redundancy and clouds and anomalies in the edit. So we kind of expected it. We expected to see it. And I think Jaron had a, pretty profound live stream where he said, sometimes in life you're wrong, referring to the flat earth map, which is the Gleason AE map. That map doesn't account for a 24-hour sun existing. And folks on the flat earth side will say, well, the heavens and the lights in the sky don't dictate what the earth is. So I'm currently underway trying to interact with more people to figure out what would depict it. They say that, there's some things that are unresolved. And I'm trying to scrutinize those now myself as we put together the story. But overall, I think the flat earthers, they expected to see it. And for some of them, it didn't change much at all. And in their interviews, they spoke a little bit about it. And I'll leave that to the story for people to hear themselves what they said. But it's an incredible site, and it's hard to make sense of the AE map where it stands. I mean, we got to go. If flat Earth is gonna survive this, it has to go back to the drawing board. There has to be cartographers to talk about proximity and the land masses and how they relate to each other. Because as it stands, it doesn't seem that they hold up to that map. I mean, the flight time from Sydney, Australia to Santiago, Chile is over it's 11 or 12 hours. The flight from LA to Sydney is about 12 to 14 hours. The Los Angeles to Santiago flight is about 11 hours. So if you're looking at a flat Earth AE Gleason map and you draw a straight line from Sydney to Santiago, you go directly over California. And so that would equate to a 12-ish hour flight from Sydney to Los Angeles, and an 11-hour flight from Los Angeles to Santiago. That's over 20 hours. But based on Critical Things flight and the flight records, we know that a Sydney to Santiago flight is about 11 and a half, 12 hours. So that's a real difficult one to reconcile on the Gleason's map, like the location of Australia to proximity of South America and the United States. So that's one people on the flat Earth often go to. The sunspots were another one. It's like, look, we could see the sunspots south of the equator and all the way down there. And when we put out a request for people around the world to send us sunspots with metadata at the same time and days that we were shooting, we got in loads of dozens and dozens of people's pictures of the sun. And you look at a sun from the north of the equator, somewhere in Missouri or Washington, D.C., and it's pretty much a mirror flipped image to the sun and the sunspots in the south. So
Gleason map, you mean the map actually created by flat earther Alexander Gleason in 1892, where the Arctic, the North Pole rather than the South Pole, is at the center, and somehow that supports flat Earth. How did Gleason try to support flat Earth with a North Pole map?
From what I understand, he put Antarctica around the outside. So if you're looking at that map and it's like a plate, a dish, a circle, Antarctica is the whole outer rim. Mm-hmm. So, that would mean that a 24-hour sun, the sun would be, according to that model, be moving during our inner circle north hemisphere. During our summer, it'd be tight moving and then wider on the summer, but you're still getting 12-hour days and 12-hour nights in the rest of the central part of the world, the equator, while we're having this 24-hour sun. And then vice versa when it's towards the Arctic. It has some issues. I don't know too much about Gleason. I'm still learning a bit for the doc.
To me, it only takes 2 seconds to recognize that having one pole at the middle and one pole at the outer edge doesn't make any sense, since they both should be represented equally because they're equal.
Yeah, I think Gleason's map, from what I heard from people like Eric Dubay and some of his videos, I think what he accounted was that there was no 24-hour sun in Antarctica, which is where Will derived this idea that this is such a significant experiment.
So the sun was out for 24 hours when you were there? The sun was up for 24 hours?
Sorry, you were breaking up.
Was the sun up for 24 hours when you were there?
It was up for the whole time. So 3 days, 3.5 days, 4 days that we were there, it did not set.
So no night. Okay. All right. So on the... how long were some of the flat earthers' mind changed and some not changed from seeing the sun up for 3 days?
I haven't checked in with everybody, so I couldn't say at this point. I know that there's a possibility that one may have had some changes, but I haven't checked in with him personally to hear from him. I've been hyper focused on the doc and then going in live streams to try to reconcile myself to AE map with other flat earthers who might be smarter, might have some ideas. So I hate to say either way right now.
Are you still editing the video footage?
Yeah, we're started. Today was the first day of week 3.
Oh.
We're on a 6-week schedule for the picture and then an 8 to 10 week on the overall project. Hopefully we can find at some point in this time a distribution for it in a home at the point that we have it.
Did you conduct any on-the-spot experiments or demonstrations while filming to disprove the flat Earth theory, such as the Earth's curvature or the sun's apparent path?
Other than filming it for 24 hours, no, I did not. I brought a compass. My compass was pretty accurate, I'd say, all the way down to the 79th, 80th parallel, what have you, where we were. But again, I was hyper-focused on filming everyone else's experiments, and I know there were some long-range experiments, observations from some of the flat earthers. They were examining they had a flare gun to, get some heat signals from the sun to try to measure how hot it was at different times of day. I know they'll be releasing that info soon. I'm trying to get a hold of it myself so that I can include what I can from them.
So who funded this expensive thing?
The trip was put on by Will Duffy. Individuals did fund themselves in some instances. Will wanted to originally, I believe, bring 48 people, flat earthers and globers, 24 of each. But as he started to get towards the trip, he was not able to get commitments from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So it ended up being Jaron Campanella, Austin Whitsett, Lizbeth Acosta, and myself from the Flat Earthers, and Will Duffy, Mike Toon, Dave McKeegan, and Critical Think, and Mark Herman from the Round Earthers.
Okay, did Elizabeth take her shirt off also?
No, she did not.
Okay.
That would have been inappropriate.
All right. What motivated you to participate? There was about 10 people there, and so you were the main documentarian person with the video, right?
Right.
Now, let me see.
I've had a fascination with Flat Earth myself since about 2015. My friend Mark was going on the journey, and so I had originally thought, man, I'd love to go. Maybe I can go with them, with who he was going with. It wasn't possible. I said, if the organizer or anyone is looking for someone, a filmmaker, a documentary filmmaker, I sent him some of my work. I said, use this as a reference. I think I'll do a great job. And it was right before Thanksgiving. I got a call very early in the morning, and it was Mark, and he said that the organizer, Will Duffy, was interested to speak to me, if I was still interested to go, and what I could provide and what that would mean. So the rest was history.
All right. Do you, besides editing this, are you planning on doing any more flat Earth, round Earth, or other Earth studies?
It'll be hard to say. I think where this all ends up will have a big impact. I'm enjoying the community of both flat and round Earth. I've got on a lot of live streams. People have been very kind. A lot of people don't believe we went. I find a lot of their claims a little bit absurd at times, a little funny at times. So yeah, it's hard to say. I think this will be pretty definitive when I'm done on at least what I've been able to focus. I don't know that I'll have another opportunity to be full-time on these concepts again in my life. And so as it is now, this is hopefully I'm going to have all the information to present both sides of this story, both sides of this argument, and hopefully enough information from the trip for a good story that I'll leave people with a non-biased visual that will allow them to make their own decisions, which I think is what a good documentary ultimately does.
Okay, so the main thing I've learned from this whole excursion was that you believe that it's okay for men to take all their shirts off and inappropriate for women. Is that right?
No, that's not what I said.
No?
I don't believe that's correct. I don't believe.
Do you want to correct the record?
No, I think we leave that part out.
All right.
Women can do what they want. I'm not encouraging.
How about a trans? Now, if a trans man / woman wanted to take their shirt off there at that time, would that be appropriate or not?
No comment on what the individual free people of the world decide to do with their free time. I did it. I thought it was a hoot. I had fun. It was fun in nature. A place supposed to be that cold. So people are people.